Hey Bards, happy Thursday. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. This afternoon, I have the pleasure of introducing you all to our guest speaker, Dr. Claire Muselman. Some of you that have been in the organization for a bit may recognize Claire. She used to be one of our clients back in her time with CWG. Others may recognize her from LinkedIn. She's got a pretty incredible following for our industry. And I'm actually fortunate enough to have known Claire for about 20 years, back from our University of Iowa days. For those of you, though, that are not familiar, Claire has had a meteoric rise to become one of the most recognized thought leaders in the workers' compensation industry. She is a sought-after speaker on a national platform, an adjunct professor at Drake University, and founder of CM Advising. Some of her notable achievements include pioneering the Workers' Recovery Unit, establishing the Workers' Compensation Center for Excellence, making significant milestones both in our field. She's been on a number of podcasts. She's an editorialist and contributor for the workerscompensation.com and captive.com, amongst others. She is the editor-in-chief of the Bloom hardcopy magazine and is also working on writing her own book, which I'm very excited to read. So, Dr. Claire, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak with us today about effective business communication. And without further ado, I will go ahead and hand the mic over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. So thank you everyone for your time today. I appreciate time is the only currency that I value these days. And so I'm very, very, very thankful that you guys all chose to spend the next hour with me. Can you see the slides?
Looks good.
Yes. Lauren, I'm telling you, this is the first time it's ever gone this smoothly. So I'm so grateful to Lauren. So with that, I will just get moving. So today we are going to talk about effective business communication, and more so now than ever before. This is imperative. We've got people that are now entering the workforce that have had tech since the beginning of time of their lives. And we have a lot of other generations that are kind of experiencing with it. But most importantly, the power of human connection ended up having a massive emphasis of coming out of the pandemic. And so my doctorate is all in organizational behavior and organizational development. So I like to study how humans behave. And one of the classes that I teach at Drake University is called Business Communication, where we focus on a lot of other elements outside of the words that you are choosing to use. So I've changed that into kind of a masterclass 1-hour series that I am happy to share with you guys today. So I am going to ask for some of your participation because I don't want you to get bored with me. And I am going to ask that you take some personal reflection time, and I am really open to your feedback after this. So with that, Sarah gave the introduction, and outside of that, I think, I also am writing a textbook on business communications. That's why I'm qualified to be here speaking to you guys today. I really like being branded as glittery and sparkly. I think that the world has enough yuck, and I want to be here to help make it shine. And so my goal today is to help you guys enhance your own personal business communication methods and models, and how you are going to showcase yourself moving forward from our time and get 2 o'clock for you guys moving forward today. I like this quote by Maya Angelou because I like having some passion, some style, and some humor. Okay, so today, first of all, every presentation, and I want you guys to think of this as every encounter that you have in life, whether it be a phone call, a text message, exchanging words with someone, your coffee barista, anything along those lines, you are going to leave people better or worse from that interaction. There is no intermediary. People either feel better and more energized after engaging with you, or they don't. And if they don't, that's we're putting into the worst column. It's like if you have a scale of 1 to 5, most of the time people pick a 3. If you're saying this is like, I agree, or I disagree, or I don't care, a lot of people go through that 3 and they pick that middle box. Okay, we're not going to pick the middle box. Our goal is to make people feel better after interacting with us in whatever capacity that is. So what you think of that, every presentation or every engagement offers an opportunity to alter perceptions. Every encounter offers an opportunity to alter perceptions, and every conversation offers an opportunity to alter perceptions. And this is where we start looking at things more than from business communications textbook standpoint. We're talking about the power of influence. Something else I want you guys to think about is during your lifetime, you are going to come across 80,000 people whose lives you will influence. 80,000 people. So think of your favorite football stadium or sports stadium, and think about filling that. And at the end of your life, when you walk into that, how do you want to feel? How do you want the crowd to sound when you enter that stadium at the end of your life, having influenced 80,000 people in your lifetime? So food for thought as we continue to move forward. So today, our agenda is all about you. I am here for you. I want comments, questions. I'm going to ask Sarah and or Lauren to monitor the chat for me. So please make sure that if you've got questions, I'm here for them. We're going to talk about executive presence. This is the energy that you bring into a room, because you are responsible for the energy that you bring into a room, into a conversation, into a client meeting, whatever that looks like. You're responsible for that. We're also going to talk about influence, and then we're going to talk about your own creativity. And we're going to look at this in three lenses: one from the written, verbal, and your energetic standpoint. So let's start this out. When you introduce yourself, who are you? How do you respond? Let's say we're all at a networking event right now, and I want you to respond in the chat. I say, hi, my name is Claire. Who are you? How do you describe yourself? Go. And you guys do not have to read all of these to me. If you can read a couple, that would be amazing. Or Lauren, if you want to participate and be a live participant, we could do that. How do you describe yourself? So what tends to happen, and as you guys are doing this, what tends to happen is we'll say, hey, my name is Claire. Like, I'm going to use a former example. Like, hi, my name is Claire. I'm the vice president of workers' compensation at North American Risk Services. And we go by that. Okay, going to challenge you guys. So I want to see these. So I saw Tina's. Tina, can we unmute Tina and let her share hers?
Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Sorry, Tina. Tina, if I was live, I'd throw you a candy
bar. I really didn't know what, other than nice to meet you, Claire, because I know you're supposed to address the other person with the name they just gave you and make eye contact. I'm not really sure what else to say other than introduce myself as, Bardavon Health Innovations. I would think that by saying I don't really know what to say past that. That's what I'm looking forward to learning. So.
Okay, I just want everyone to know I did not pay Tina to say any of that. She literally was the first chat I saw.
Trust me, they know Tina talks all on her own.
Amazing. Okay, sounds perfect. Okay, so most of the time when we do this, we say who we are. We go by our title and our position. Sometimes we will add in our familial stance. If we're introducing or we're just trying to find connection points with people, we tend to go in a scope that focuses on our career and any other positions that we hold. But notice the question I'm asking you is, who are you? I didn't ask about your job. I didn't ask about your title. I didn't ask about if you're a parent or whatnot. So I want you to think about this in a different lens, because how you introduce yourself is going to change the game on how people see you from a perception standpoint. So let's think about it from this standpoint. And if you've got pens and paper, or if you want to use your computer, whatever, I want you to take some notes on this. And if you aren't going to do that right now, come back to this and do me a favor. Within the next 24 hours, answer a couple of these questions for yourself. Your future self will thank you. And it's going to give you guys some time to reflect on how would you really answer this. We don't give ourselves enough space or time to truly figure out what's going on in our core or with ourselves. So if you've got your calendars up, give yourself 5 minutes tomorrow afternoon, 10 minutes, come back and revisit these. And then if you want to share them with me, I'd love to hear what you guys come up with. But what sets your soul on fire? How would you answer that? What motivates you to get out of bed in the morning? When the alarm goes off, what is that driving force that actually gets you out of bed? What gets you excited about life? Like, I love workers' compensation because we can be single-handed game changers that can make good things happen for people. Where do you like to spend your time, your energy, or your resources? The three things in life that we always have to offer people are time, talent, and treasure. How do you like to spend those? That's the next question. Where do you focus that? What brings you joy? When do you feel that immense happiness that we describe as joy? And where are you from? What truths do you own from that? I'm from Iowa. I love owning the fact that we are Iowa nice. It's a legit thing. If you were pulled over on the side of the road, I would probably stop and ask if you needed anything. It's a real thing. And how do you want to leave people feeling? People don't care what they say. They don't really care about what you're doing, but boy, do they care how you leave them feeling. So the decision-making center in our brain actually doesn't process cognitive information. The frontal cortex processes the data, the objective information in life. But when we start going back into like our Homo sapien brain, it's all processed by feelings and emotions. And we talk about gut instinct. So how you leave people feeling and the perception you leave them with, that's what we're gunning for. So how do you want to leave people feeling? So going back to the beginning, are we leaving people better or worse from our interactions with them? So now let's go back to the activity that I just had you do from an introduction standpoint. Now I want you to introduce yourself, and please come back to the chat, without using any title or a position, no familial affiliation. And I do this a lot with like universities and sports and whatnot, where people like to affiliate themselves with what year they are in school and if they're a part of a philanthropic group or if they're a part of a sports team. So I want you to take all of that out. No titles, no positions. I don't care if you're a parent. I don't care if you're a brother, cousin, sister, mother, whatever. I want you to try and now introduce yourself from this lens and see what you come up with. Be creative. And I'll give you guys an example. So my name is Claire. I'm here to make great things happen for people. I get energized by knowing that I can single-handedly change the trajectory of somebody's day just by one simple interaction. And I like to be that ripple to stem forward into other people's bright, shiny days. Yes, I've had some practice at this, but my goal is that you guys can start thinking of something fun. And it doesn't have to be verbatim or really well thought out. I've had people say, you know, my name is Sarah. I like plants, dark chocolate, and I really enjoy spending time with my dog. Great. You just told me a little bit about yourself. And actually, you told me more than I think. You can take care of living things by plants. You like chocolate. So if I'm ever going to buy you a gift, I know that that's something that's going to be important to you, and that you like spending time with a dog. You have a pet, and it helps build connection pieces. So you are offering connection points out to people when you say who you are, just by not talking about your position and title. Does anyone have an example that I can see off the bat?
You're getting some good stuff in the chat. You saw Ashley says.
Yes, Ashley's. Ashley, do you want to say yours out loud? Ashley Adams?
Sure. So my name is Ashley, and I find the most joy while either riding a jet ski or drinking chocolate milk.
I love it. Thank you. So now if we were all in person, I would totally Oprah this and be like, you get a car and Tina gets a car. Thank you for participating. But do you see how this changes the lens? And a lot of times when we're going out in sales or we're doing account management or we're working with clients, people get tired of that positional because it puts us in a box. This makes us all become human and that human element. And this is what people are really needing these days, especially when we come out of this pandemic where we were all isolated for so long. The power of human connection and the power behind human capital is the game-changing environment that helps us set ourselves apart and really let us stand out from the crowd. So things to think about. And when you are looking at this, let's talk about what to ponder. So if you need help, and this is not an easy one for you to come up with, some things to think about. I help or work with blank who want blank and blank. So I help or work with injured workers who want to get back to work and back to life. There you go. I'll stick to a work comp one. But when you're working with different groups of people, focus on the inner workings of what that organization is and how you want to work with them. Are they a partner? Are they a collaborator? If we're selling, what need are you trying to fulfill? But look at that. And then where does that power structure come from? A lot of this is going to help you when you are engaging with people to think about how you're going to communicate with them. If it's a power structure issue, who is that actual decision maker? Is it the CFO? Is it a claims manager? Is it a claims adjuster? What does that power dynamic look like? And what kind of buy-in are you going to need? What does the communication look like in the organization? Do you have a leader that's just going to take it and run with it? Or is this something that we're going to have 5 more meetings on to have this exact same discussion? And the most important is, how do you want to be remembered? Especially like after the exchange, after the deal, whatever that looks like for you, how do you want to leave people feeling? So I want you to ponder that. Come back to those questions tomorrow. Give yourself 24 hours to think on it, and do yourself a favor, give your future self a favor of giving yourself that gift for tomorrow. All right, so let's talk about energy. This is important. Executive presence, one of my favorite topics. I'm actually writing a book on this. I love this topic so much because this is the energy that you are responsible for bringing into a room. So why does this matter? There are people and leaders and speakers and children that can walk into a room and captivate the room without saying a word. And this is one of those incredible phenomenons that we have now labeled as executive presence, where people just have this innate ability to carry a room and the energy. So I want you to think about what that looks like when you enter a room. And we'll talk about this in a couple of different lenses, but a lot of this becomes down to nonverbal body language communications. So think about how you're sitting right now, and I can't see all of you. So if you're all going to start shifting in your chairs, or if you're standing, that's okay. But do me a favor, roll your shoulders back and down and keep your collarbone open. This gives off a very different energy than if you're seated slouching. To my lady friends here, ladies, when you are standing, don't cross your legs. It is a sign of insecurity. And whether you feel insecure or not, that is the message that you give across. So when we start looking at how do you come into a room, how do you command the presence when you are coming into a presentation, when you're going in for an interview, when you're going in to network or meet with somebody for a coffee or a beverage or whatever that looks like, how do you enter the room? And this all starts with, what are your body mechanics look like? Then I want you to think about when you're entering this room and you can feel the energy that's coming in, are you on your phone? So many times people are walking into lunch meetings or to coffees and they're scrolling on their phone. I'm going to ask you to not. The next room that you have to go into for a meeting or for a lunch or whatever that might be, I want you to practice shoulders back and down. And I want you to walk into that room with confidence and not be on your phone. Then start paying attention to other people around you, especially if you're at a restaurant. It is fascinating how many people come in and are just not physically present, which is a huge piece of this. So how do you get presence? This is a whole self-confidence thing. And so there's a huge dynamic that goes into this. But when we think about it, I used to work when I was at CWG. We had a CEO named Mike Lex. He was a phenomenal human being. He didn't have to say a word. When he walked in, we could feel it. It is this dynamic presence of self-awareness, self-actualization, and ownership. But his energy was something that you wanted to be a part of. And this is where we go back to that influence. Like, how do you want to leave people feeling? So when he entered a room, we wanted to be a part of this. We wanted to know what he was going to say, the way that he could command a room, because we knew how great we felt after engaging with him. So when we think about this, let's take it up a notch. We're going to talk about the social game. People are going to tell you to fake it until you make it. I am going to tell you, don't. I am going to tell you that that is false. And as you work with younger generations, and I get to spend a lot of time with college students, they can smell it a mile away. Authenticity is one of these things that we are talking about on how to just be your authentic self. And when we say that, it is owning the fact that we might not be perfect all the time, and that is okay. But that whole fake it till you make it isn't actually leaving people with what they want. Being fake has actually been identified as the most annoying trait in another person. Second place, people who show off. There's enough fake in the world, and here comes the Barbie movie coming out, I think, in 2 weeks. So let's save that for Barbie and make sure that we are happy with who we are at ourselves. So with authenticity on the rise, a lot of this comes down to our own attitudes, and we control our attitudes. This is where I said you are responsible for the energy that you bring into a room. You are also responsible for your attitude. So I'm not saying every day when we wake up and we get out of bed, it's like, yes, today is amazing. Some days it's not as easy to be that person, but you've got to be your own hype squad. So when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, I challenge yourself to think of something you like about yourself and then tell yourself to have a good day. Mel Robbins did a study on how to high five in the mirror, how it can absolutely change the perception of how you feel about yourself because it helps you rewire your brain. The high five is one of the most universally identified gestures across all cultures. So you can high five yourself in the mirror and it would do the exact same thing for you that if you were actually doing it with another person. So if you're having a bad day, go high five yourself in the mirror. I realize this might sound a little weird and you might be like, Claire, you're crazy, but I promise it'll make you feel better. And then after you've done it and you're like, this wasn't that bad. You're welcome. So one other thing to think about when we're looking at the social game and we're talking about executive presence and the energy that we are bringing into a room, a conversation, a client meeting, you name it. Remember, you can get along with everyone and you don't have to get along with everyone. So when you are in the room and we are talking about energy and how that feels and what that is like, you will start to be able, if you are becoming more aware of your own energy, you can actually feel the energy of others. Sometimes you are going to feel a pull towards people, and that it means that you are enjoying their energy. You are also going to feel a push away towards other people. Pay attention to what your physical surroundings are like and the physiological nature of your body. It tells you so much more than you are aware of. A lot of times we numb a lot of this stuff, or we don't pay attention to it, or we're busy and we don't just pay attention to what is actually going on in our surroundings. And your body is telling you, like, hey, this is a great idea, or hey, this is not a great idea. We want to be the people that attract it, and that we have good energy, happy attitude, positive attitude. We're here because we like to make good things happen for people, and we want to leave people feeling better because they got to interact with us. So again, you can get along with everyone. Pay attention to the physiological nature of this, but remember, you don't have to. So there's a power of choice that comes into this as well. All right, so when we start to take control of this, take control of settings for your own success. So when I say you are responsible for the energy that you bring into a room. So I don't drink alcohol. It's not my jam. So I don't tend to put meetings at happy hour or around bars. It's just not my thing anymore. So I like to do coffee shops. So I will find local coffee shops and ask people to meet me there for a meeting, because that is a space that I know I thrive. So what does that look like for you? Where does your comfort zone exist? Back when I was on the claims side, I had a really great relationship with a strategic partner who helped me with return to work initiatives. And her big jam was the yoga studio. So she would take people to go do yoga, and then we'd sit around afterwards and have tea and chit chat. What does that look like for you? And the more unique that you can make this, the more memorable you become. So what does that location look like for you? Maybe it is lunch, maybe it's a pub, maybe it's a German pub because you're German. What does that look like, and how can you make that your own space? You can then control the situation and with the people that you're going to be around. So set yourself up for success. If you don't want to host a 120 person event, don't do it. Find a way that you are going to set yourself up for success to thrive, because it's going to be different for each one of us. And being able to understand your own energy bank and what is going to make you the most comfortable is how you take control of this to set yourself up for the best outcome. So I'm going to give you, over these next couple of slides, I'm going to give you key moments, like identifying things to pay attention to. And then I'm going to give you some practical application. You will get a copy of this presentation at the end. And if you want to come back to these, practical application is going to be your homework. So key moments. Take some time to cultivate awareness in yourself. I want you guys setting a 5-minute date with yourself tomorrow to go revisit those questions on who are you. Answer one. Then maybe next week you come back and you answer another. But give yourself 5 minutes of the relationship with yourself to figure out what that is. What do you like? What do you not like? Stop forcing yourself to socialize in ways that drain you. We want to be vibrant, and now we can't do that if we feel like our social bank account is nearing empty. Go where you can bloom. So that thrive versus survive. So I don't like to be out in nightclubs as much as I used to back in my early days. So that's not a place that I'm going to want to host an event. So it's not somewhere I'm going to do that. And then say no. Here's another piece that you get to do, and I will give you that homework assignment in just a second. But on ways that you can say no, you are offering opportunity for yourself to say yes to something else. And make your confidence contagious, because it's a ripple effect. So when people see you doing well, it sparks an igniting flame that they can do well too. So remember, there's a bajillion people that are watching you, especially if you have littles at home, and your confidence is what is going to set other people apart as well. So your homework in this initiative: say no to one event or task over the next week that you are dreading. This is permission for you to say no to your in-laws. So you're welcome. You can say, I attended the session with Dr. Claire and she said I don't have to. So if you need that, there's your freebie. But if there is a meeting that you don't have a purpose for being in, if there is a dinner or a lunch or a coffee or something that you're just not in the mood to go to, it's okay to say no. Maybe you're physically exhausted and I have to work out tonight. Okay, listen to your body, listen to yourself. Say no to something that you are dreading. Your future self will thank you for it. And as we are trying to hijack our brain and continue this positive attitude, find a song that would be your walkout song. So on days that you don't feel your amazing best, you could put on this song and it's instantly going to put you into a good vibe. Music has this amazing ability to change our mood drastically. So find what that walkout song is for you and then keep it on a playlist. So in case you ever need it, if you've got a call or a meeting, or let's say you have a one-on-one with one of your leaders, that you can put yourself in a good mood. So, because remember, you are responsible for the energy that you bring into this space. Okay, next section, first impressions. They are not always a one and done. We think they are, but they're not, because I want to explain to you how the brain works and processes information. So before I even said a word today, you guys already had decided whether you were going to listen to me or not. Maybe you think I'm full of it. Maybe you're like, yes, I'm going to take this information away. It's okay. Your brain decided for you in 0.33 seconds. This is all done in the subconscious mind, and I'll explain that in just a second. But we make decisions on people before they have ever had a chance to speak. All of it, everything just radiates immediately, and your brain decides, is this person trustworthy? Not. Do I like them? Will I give them a chance or not? In 0.33 seconds. So this is why first impressions don't always work, because our brain is processing information in a manner that isn't necessarily objective or true. So things to think about. When we are engaging or walking or approaching somebody, our body is instantly into, are we going into fight or flight mode, or can I actually trust this person? That is what someone is thinking the moment, or your brain is processing the moment that you are encountering another individual. So with that, there's 3 different levels that our brain likes to process. So that level 1, that initial, we are trying to figure out if this person that we are engaging with is a friend or a foe. And this means that our subconscious is trying to do its own personal safety check. So if you transition this back to a long time ago, this is when tribes would approach each other. Are we going to war, or is this somebody that we can actually collaborate with? We are trying to establish, is this person safe? Are they going to harm me or not? Once we pass that, we move on to level 2. We do a confidence assessment on people immediately. Is this person a winner or a loser? That's what your brain is trying to decide. Again, this is all happening in 0.33 seconds. Then level 3, is this person going to be an ally or an enemy? Does this person like you to back you up? And it's not what you say, but how you say it. So your brain is processing all of this in less than a second to figure out how we're going to engage with this person that we are either talking to on the phone, that we have seen approach, that's a speaker, at a networking event, a client, you name it. This is what happens when you first meet someone. So things to think about, and our brain is incredible. It does a lot of things and processes a lot of information at once. So some suggestions to be more trustworthy: use your hands when you talk. There was a study done on TED Talks, and the people who were found to be most trustworthy used their hands much more than the others, like 500 to 700 times during a talk. So it's kind of crazy. It helps build trust with your audience. Make sure that when you're giving a handshake, I don't feel like I need to say this, but nothing is too much these days. So make sure you are giving a solid handshake. People will judge you off of this. Make sure you pay attention to how you stand. Are you standing with your feet hip width apart? Are you crossing your legs? What does that look like? And eye contact. We all know that in the United States, and specific to American culture, eye contact is important. It's a sign of respect. If you get nervous looking at people's eyes, I want you to focus on noticing the color of their eyes. It distracts you enough because you're focusing on a color and you're not focusing on staring at them in their eyes, and you won't come across as creepy. But this is one of those elements where by doing this, you are trying to get a better engagement, but also your gaze when you are trying to notice the color of someone's eyes is softer than if you're trying to focus on looking at them in their eyes. It will get easier. So next person that you interact with, pay attention to the color of their eyes. And if you guys are actually in the office right now, can't wait to see what happens after this is over. All right, so key moments out of this: confirm trust by showing your hands, pay attention to how you stand, and use the right amount of eye contact. So your homework or your practical application is to practice your handshake. Be aware of it, cultivate some awareness around it, refresh your stance, and practice that eye contact 60 to 70% of the time. And again, I promise it will get easier. So let's go into conversations. Conversations, very simply put, has nothing to do with you. I had introduced a significant other at one point to one of my cousins, and my cousin said, like, we left the lunch. My cousin was like, I love this gentleman. He's amazing. Oh, I love this. And I sat back and thought, he didn't share one piece of information about himself. So we're driving home and debriefing. And I said, help me understand here. you didn't share anything about yourself. And he said, I know people love to talk about themselves. So if I can get them talking about themselves, my likability increases and I don't have to share anything about me. Kind of crazy, but it really works. So when you think about how we introduce ourselves, I'm going to come back to this. Most of the time we do this, hey, how are you? Oh, yeah, well, what do you do? And that's the first question we're asked. I was at a dinner party last night where the first question that I got asked when I sat down next to this woman, she says, oh, so where do you work? I'm like, oh, cool. That's where we're at. All right, good to know. But what do you do? Then we say, oh, yeah, that's nice. Okay, so where are you from? Oh, okay. So it brings you here. Okay. And then we move on and we go to that next person and that next person. And this is kind of how we network and mingle. It's just what we've been doing for decades upon decades upon decades. So what I'm going to tell you is, if you want to be memorable, let's start flipping the script. So instead of saying, hi, oh, what do you do? What if you change the name of the game and start changing it up? So if you meet me at a party of any kind or networking event, I usually say, when you're not spending your time here with me right now in this moment, what do you like to do with your time? Other ideas you can use are, what was the highlight of your day? What's your story? What brings you here? The personal passion project in your life. And then you can go back into the, what do you do? How are you? Etc. But start with different breaking questions to get people to talk. So some examples, instead of how's work, try asking, are you working on any exciting projects recently? Instead of how are you? What was the highlight of your day? I also have an almost 15-year-old daughter. So when I ask her how her day was at school, I usually get fine. That's it. So I've had to get really creative at how I ask questions to try and get an answer that is more than one word, that is just fine. So this is where some of this comes from. Then you can ask, like, how's it going? What are you up to this weekend? Are there any plans that you have this weekend? Are you doing any vacations? We're in summer. Lots of people are traveling. And instead of, have you been busy? Everybody's busy. Blah. What do you do to unwind? What time? How do you spend time recharging yourself? What do you do for intentional restoration? Remember, we are never lazy. We are intentionally restoring ourselves. So some conversation starters and some script shifts for you to try. So why does this matter? Because being different wakes people up. So one of the things that has kind of come around a couple times is when people ask, how are you? And some people say, live in the dream. And sometimes people say it in a sarcastic way, and other people will say, yeah, I'm living the dream. Well, that wakes people up instead of people saying, I'm fine, how are you? And of course, now my dog is going to bark because he wants you to know that he is here as well. But being different wakes people up. So if you can't spice up your job title or how you describe the position that you hold within Bardavon, spice up how you introduce yourself. Maybe you can, and again, if there's IT or HR on here, I don't want them to get mad at me, but if you can put a unique quote in your email signature or have a tagline that, like, I like to make good things happen for other people. It's been my tagline since I was like 7 years old, and I always went with it in workers' comp. If you're going to host an event, instead of being bland and serving coffee, try and do something unique like vanilla tea or lemonade or cake pops, something that's different, that's going to make you memorable. I'm a huge fan of sending handwritten notes versus emails. And if you don't know what to say, I'm going to give you a little freebie here. ChatGPT is really helpful. I never know what to say to my mother-in-law, and it has been unbelievably helpful. So there you go, as your food for thought AI can be our friends. But think outside the box. And if you don't want to do thank you cards, maybe you send something cool like stickers, pens, lollipops, popcorn, something that continues to make you unique, that keeps people remembering you. So something else to think about as we are going through this, it is not people's job to remember you. It is your obligation and responsibility to make sure they don't have a chance to forget you. And again, this is where we go back to, how do you leave people feeling? Because people will never forget how you made them feel. And when you're entering that stadium of those 80,000 people that you've influenced in your life, what does that sound like? What are they saying about you when you enter that? So remember, it's not their job to remember you. It's your job to make sure they can't forget you. So some key moments to pay attention to on this. We don't like to be around boring people. I think we all know that at this point. So abandon those social scripts and change the small talk so it is unique and authentic to you. Choose unique topics that engage other people. And of course, Tina already highlighted this. The sweetest sound anyone can hear is the sound of their own name. And if you're trying to learn how to remember somebody's name, Saying it 7 times in a conversation will help burn it into memory. Now, I'm not saying to be obnoxious about it, but if you're going to have a 10-minute conversation with people, you can kind of work it in. But I love that. Like, nice to meet you, Claire. Thank you, Tina. Using people's names is really important and is easy way for somebody to automatically instill likability. Practical application over the next week. Try a new conversation starter. Practice it on a friend, family member, or colleague. Create something unique within your own spectrum. Maybe it be your title, maybe it's a signature line, maybe it's a quote, whatever it is for you, but make it unique to you. When you pass someone, maybe at a Target, or if you are in the office walking down a hallway, say hi. Really random concept. I'm just going to ask you to say hi to one person that you probably wouldn't normally do. Get your head up. We're off our cell phones. We're walking by people and we are saying hi. And most smiles are started by another smile. Be that smile. And 2 for 1 on this. If you're walking by and you say hi to someone, smile. There you go. So we talked about being memorable, because again, it's not our job for people to remember us. It's our job to be unforgettable. So the best conversations are not about what you say, but they're about what you hear. So when we talk about when you're introducing yourself, what do you hear? One of the things that I used to always like to do when I start off meetings, and what I still do when I start off class when I'm meeting with my students, I ask people for attendance to give me 3 good things. Tell me 3 good things since the last time that we were together, because it does more than just tell me 3 good things in their life. It tells me where they spend their time, what they value, and conversation starters I can draw from. So if I hear they went and traveled, I can have that in the back of my memory. If I know that they like chocolate, I can use that as an incentive in the future. Maybe I know that they have a pet. I can ask about it at a later date. People give you tons of information without us actually knowing to process it. And so especially when you're working with clients or you're working on new accounts or whatnot, take notes on the little things that seem insignificant, because when you remember them, they're the big things. Southwest Airlines talks about this too in their customer service department. They had a webinar a couple of weeks ago where they were talking about their culture and what makes them different, and how if someone tells them like, hey, I'm booking these flights, and they're having a conversation with a customer service representative and they ask why, and the person says, I'm celebrating this or I'm doing this, the customer service team will then go tell the flight crew that is going to be on that, and they will try and do something special. That is why you see a lot of the social media hype that exists within Southwest Airlines. It is the little things that people tell you. If you remember it and draw upon it at a later time, it will make a huge difference in your memorability and how you leave that person feeling. Talking about ourselves gives us pleasure. So when you ask people questions that allow them to open up and share information, it increases their joy and the engagement with you. Plus, we can bring out the best in others when we start to highlight their strengths. So when we are affirming what people are telling us, turning it into something that's a positive strength for them. So for example, giving someone a positive label. So let's say we're at a networking event and we see that Tina knows everyone. So I could say to Tina, you know everyone. You must be a great networker. So you can affirm people and paying attention and observing what is going on with their life. Something else to think about, Larry King shared with us, I never learned anything while I was talking. So that power of listening is really important in communication, not just the active listening of what you're hearing, but the reflective listening. So when we're paying attention to those little things that we don't think are going to be that imperative, but we can draw upon them, of knowing, somebody's anniversary, some special date, if someone's parent was, maybe getting put in a nursing home, just checking in, asking how they're doing. If someone, has some type of health condition, something that we can check in on. I mean, people will give you information, and the fact that you can make it memorable, even if you have to write it down and draw upon it later, we're not talking about that. Doesn't matter how you do it, but trying to be memorable can make all the difference. So if you see something, say something. Yeah.
If I really can quick here, Tina had a question in the chat. How would you recommend remembering these things? So you kind of touched on it for a moment there, but
oh yeah, so I take notes on people all the time. I put them in my phone. So if I put your phone number in my phone, I will put notes in there. I try to work smarter, not harder. I mean, this is where it ends up becoming how well can you use technology to your benefit. So whether it's putting in notes, whether it's in a contact card, if you are old school and handwrite things, some things, those are important, especially if you're going to do a follow-up. Like if you're going to send a handwritten card, highlight things that you liked about that person that you met with, or something that you noticed about their office if you were in their room or their office or whatever that looks like. There's a lot of key elements or something that they shared with you that's going to resonate. Like I had a coffee with an agency partner earlier today and her intern left me with 2 really big pieces of information that I'm going to take to heart. So when I write them a thank you note for meeting with me this morning for coffee, I'm going to include those items. So it's really about how can you, if you have a contact card or whatever you're using these days, back in the old school day, and for anyone that ever watched The Office, Michael Scott used to joke about his Rolodex, and on the back of the Rolodex, he would have people's personal information and he would color code it with red, yellow, and green. And if you know what Office episode I'm talking about, it's kind of comical, but it works for people. So find a system that works for you. Work smarter, not harder. It's not always about being able to remember everything off the drop of a hat, but also being able to focus on those important elements and draw upon that knowledge that you have shared and saved for a time that would be more well-being. So with that key moments from this, I want you to see something, say something. There are so many times that I know I have walked by someone and been like, wow, they look really nice today, or they have a great shirt, and I don't say anything. That does no one any favors. If someone does a great presentation, tell them. If you see an awesome email or somebody goes out of their way and it makes a difference, tell them. See something, say something. It will start a ripple effect that will then lead people better than you found them. So listen with purpose and always search for the good, because when you expect the worst from people, you will get the worst from people. And our goal is to be that high point of interactions and giving people a reason to remember us through our interactions. So our goals from this are introduce a friend or a colleague to someone that they should know. Networking, this is where we elevate our people, try and find those connection points. And when you introduce people, make sure you rave about them. Like if I'm going to introduce friends, or I actually just did this yesterday, introduced 2 CEO friends that I think should collaborate on a project. And so I rave about how they both made a difference into my life and why they should know each other. So your goal is to now find somebody who impresses you. Think about this right now. It could be a friend, a family member, maybe somebody did something great for you earlier today. Who has been amazing to you? Go tell them. This is your permission to pull out your phone right now. Shoot a quick text. Hey, you were amazing at this. Thank you for making a difference in my life, whatever that looks like. It'll start a ripple effect. This is a good thing. All right. So I know you guys are located also in the Midwest, but I'm going to go and harp on Iowa for a second. So Iowa nice, it's a real thing. Sometimes people call it passive aggressive. I'm going to stick with it being kindness. So with that, it does truly matter if you are likable, but not just likable. It matters that you're kind. So when we are interacting with people, we've got to find those human connection points. So I want you to think about this right now, and this might end up making me go over, but I'm going to come back to this in a minute. And I want you to think about what are the similarities between a cat and a refrigerator. And I'm going to come back to this in a couple of slides, 3 slides. You have 3 slides to think about this. If you want to throw those in the chat, Lauren, I will open it up here in just like 2 slides where I want you to tell me the similarities between a cat and a refrigerator. Okay, so when we are working at finding mutual connection points with people, easy way to do that is social media. Try and find somebody that's a mutual connection. Maybe there's a mutual interest or a mutual organization. We tend to like people that are like us, and we can find ways that people are like us. Maybe we went to the same school, like Sarah and I went to University of Iowa and had a great time together there. What does that look like? How do we start to build this collaboration and this trust and this relationship? Our goal is to be power connectors. Like, what's a challenge of yours right now? Okay, how can I help solve that? And I say connect you to 3 people. If you can connect somebody to try and help solve a problem, it could be, we had a friend yesterday, we had some really bad thunderstorms here, and her tree fell in her backyard. And so it was a mass text that was like, hey, does anyone know a logger? I need somebody to help me chop up this tree. And you know what? Done, connected, and we're off to the races. You can be that solution for people, and it can help absolutely make a giant impact on their life. So we want to try and think about how we can do that. So the more you have in common with someone, it's just the more likable that you are. It's just the way that we process information and how we build trust with how our brain operates. Please try not to overthink these things. Just feel like that's always a good reminder. And go into deeper substance. If you want to know more, like say somebody gives you some piece of information that they spark joy because they like to kayak on Saturdays in some river. Ask why. Like, was that always something that you liked when you were younger? Or is that something that's newer? What do you like about the outdoors? You can ask why and start to get deeper into this conversation and learn more about someone. And then if somebody has a problem, like the logging problem yesterday with the tree down, make somebody else's problem your own so you can help be that mutual connecting point that helps them solve that solution, because they will not forget that. So next person you meet, try and find 3 commonalities within those first couple of minutes of interaction. Maybe you are a parent, maybe you have pets, maybe you like the same sports teams, go Hawkeyes. There's a lot of things that you can think about throughout this. Play the card of children. Children do this all the time, where they like to ask you why, and they will do the 7 whys to get to an understanding. But this is also a really, really good opportunity for you to learn more about someone else. And if you don't want to use the word why, you can say, can you help me understand? Or could you elaborate on? And this helps you dive deeper into meaningful connection and conversation points. And then you can also create a bond with somebody by asking a friend or a colleague if you can help them with something. And this is super important, because this is what is known as the Thomas Edison effect. By if you ask somebody to do a favor for them, the person doing the favor will actually like you more. They're doing you the favor, but they will in turn like you more. It's a fascinating concept. I've always been impressed by it, but apparently it works. So the quick activity, Lauren, can you help me? Can you tell me what similarities we have found between the cat and a refrigerator?
Yes, we have quite a few. So they both like
Awesome.
milk. You can never have just one #garage fridge.
I love that. Very true.
They both come in a variety of colors. They both store my leftovers.
Yep.
They never seem to have enough food. They are both bring comfort. They both whine a lot when they get old. They both purr.
Good.
Yes, they run all night. Yes.
Oh yeah. Yes, zoomies at 2 a.m. Yeah, that's a real thing. I've had someone once tell me that they both are buried in their backyard. I was like, oh, okay. So, you can get some interesting feedback on this one. But I say this, so when we're talking about trying to find mutual connection points with people, you guys, if you can find similarities between a cat and a refrigerator, you can find similarities with another human being. That is my illustration of that. So things to think about. And sometimes remember, we can get along with everyone, and we also don't have to like everyone. So sometimes these conversations, and I know we work with difficult people at times, or we're engaging with difficult people, or we cannot get out of a conversation quick enough. It's okay. You just got to get through that moment. And so when I show this illustration of you can find similarities between a cat and a refrigerator, you really can. You can get along with people. And then if you don't want to go back and have to interact with that person again, that's okay. But at least you're leaving them better than you found them. So things to think about. So we're going to go back to influence for a second. So influence is this important component. We've talked about it. 80,000 people are going to be in that stadium when you are exiting your world. What does that look like? So why do we talk about influence? So let's think about who has influenced you, because we're going to make this all about you. So parents. Parents influence our behavior by telling us what is right and wrong. Then we have teachers. And so beyond that whole scope of academia, they're going to teach us societal norms as well through their influence. And they help us influence our thoughts and behavior by what education is taught, as well as what our sociology of being in a school and what that's like when we're around people, and the sociology of people, that a lot of that is learned through our teachers and our academia within a school. Then we start thinking about work, and work culture has a lot of influence. What's our boss or our leaders like, or our colleagues or our clients? What kind of involvement do we have? What kind of influence do they have over who we are and our behaviors? Welcome to television. I should just change this to entertainment. Subliminal messaging. So when you're watching movies, you're binge watching a TV show. Did you see that Starbucks cup or possibly that Mac? Things to think about. Here comes that influence. Social media, dollar bills, y'all. That's a thing. There's a lot of influence that goes into that. And then, of course, our friends have their own personal agendas of influence. And numbers are not my strong suit today. So where it says 10 tips to connect, there's actually only 7. So glad I'm good at numbers today. But all right, we're going to talk about 7 things that relate to influence. Ask them, the power of why, birds of a feather, gifts are forgiving, the mirror effect, one of my favorites, get vulnerable, and evoke emotion. So common sense is not common anymore. So when we were talking about influence and communication, think about what it takes to influence you, to get you to push to one side or another. So when we're working with people, how can I help you and make a difference to you on this topic or issue? So again, if we're looking at sales, what's the solution that I'm looking for? But this also in just working with people, like, hey, how can I help make your day easier, better, etc. What questions or frustrations or challenges would you like me to address? One of my favorite questions to ask my child. So if you're a parent, I challenge you to ask this one. It's kind of funny what you get back, because sometimes you will get, I don't want anything, I just want you to listen to me. Okay, awesome. Great for leaders as well. And then what are the 3 most important areas you would like me to cover? There's what kind of, when we're working with people, asking people for information, like, what do you need from me? What do you need to get out of this so that this is a mutually beneficial exchange? And again, we're trying to leave people better than we found them. So maybe it might be, what's the most important area that we get through today? What is your initiatives for these meetings? What is the purpose of this conversation? Try and think about it and wrap your head around it in that capacity, which then leads us to the power of why. So why do something? Because the moment you can justify why we're going to do something, people are more than likely going to agree with you or come along with. That is that power of influence. If there's a justification, people tend to go ahead and move forward with it because there's a reason and a rationalization that people are like, okay, there's a why, I can do that. This is very interesting too, because when we look at situations and things that have had consequences, we look at things and we don't necessarily look at them as good or bad. We just kind of look at them like, okay, I understand how this happened. This happened because of whatever the situation, and there was a consequence. Sometimes it's a positive consequence. Other times it's a negative consequence. But if we can understand the why, we get to understand the human behavior that came as a result of it, and then we can better understand. The human brain works in the communication elements of starting with why, moving to how, and then communicating the what. Most of us start with who, what, where, when, why, how, and why ends up being later, because this is how we were trained and influenced by our teachers, education, etc. But the brain doesn't work that way. The brain wants to know, why is this important? Why do you deserve my attention for this in this moment? All right, then how are we going to achieve that? All right, so what do you want me to do? And that is how you get better buy-in when you're starting to do change management or you're trying to bring people along with you. It is simply the biology and the wiring of the human brain. Then birds of a feather flock together. So we want to think about that when we're looking at influence, that whole likability piece that we've already touched on, trying to find common ground that everyone can agree on. Sometimes we're going to agree to disagree, but the idea is that we are getting positive responses and showing respect along that way, also respecting ourselves and maintaining our own boundaries. And looking for those mutual connection points. And if people are having a hard time in a group, try and help them find mutual connection points. Again, you can find connection points between a cat and a refrigerator. You can find connection points with another human being. Gifts are for giving. When we are communicating, our goal is to give our communication off as a gift. Like, this is a gift of time. It's a gift of communication. It's a gift of verbiage. I'm trying to educate you, influence you, make your life better, leave you with a thought that might challenge you, whatever that looks like. One of the other things, we want to be inspiring. So passion, energy, and commitment, that whole presence, that is also a gift to other people. When you're around people that have good energy or have that passion and have that space, it ends up making you feel better. So it ends up being a gift that you can give. And when you are able to send a powerful message and deliver compelling information, always make sure that you smile, because that is also a gift that can be translated from an energy standpoint and leave people, again, better than you found them. 3 to go on this. The mirror effect. I love this. The more self-aware you are, I want you to think of it like a tree, where the deeper the roots will go, and then you can weather whatever storm comes, because the deeper your roots are and the more self-aware you are, it doesn't really matter what happens, because you know who you are at your core. And at the end of the day, it's going to be okay. So I don't know who needs to hear that today, but no matter what life it throws at you, it will be okay. It's going to, sometimes we have to strategize. Maybe we have to go a couple of different ways, but being true to yourself, understanding who you are in that core, and knowing that things are going to be okay, it's good. So this is when you look, how you project, how you present, how are you seen? Knowing that can also help grow your roots, because then it helps you with your reception, your perception, and how you're going to flex in different situations. So I get asked quite a bit. Actually, yesterday I got asked this in a different way, where a woman was like, when I start to get anxious, I need some help. Like, what should I do? People tell me I need to meditate, but I don't even know where to begin. I was like, all right, what's your favorite color? She said purple. I was like, perfect. Look around the room or look through your phone, try and find some things that are purple. And it completely disengages where her anxiety was coming from to give her a moment to just focus around the room on things that were purple. So when we think about this, becoming self-aware and knowing when we're going to get into those anxious situations, or having a repository of tools to be able to utilize to help control ourselves and our self-control, this can be a really big game changer. So then you've also got to understand your style. What do you tend to fall back on? What's your fallback, and how do you push yourself out of your comfort zone? What are the areas of your communication style that you know you are great at? Maybe you are a wonderful verbal communicator, or maybe you're shy, so you do better in a written capacity. How do we adapt to that? And how can you figure out what you need more of so that you can go and work with your leader and figure out how to enhance your communication methods in that capacity? And sometimes we have to get vulnerable. So remember, I told you authenticity is what we are looking for. So the real versus polished. People are tired of corporate speak and this whole perception. What makes you you? People want to know that they can connect with you because you're a real human being. So make the most of your time with that, making connections meaningful and understanding. So that real human connection, trust is the cornerstone of any type of relationship. And so how do you build that? You try and find those mutual connection points. And to impact your audience, we want to try and connect some of those pieces together. And then how do you make somebody's life better? What do we look at that from the influence and the perspective that we are coming to them with? How do we help emphasize the positivity within the space that we're bringing to them from a personal landscape or a professional landscape? Sometimes we can share a little piece of us that can actually make somebody's day that much better because they know they're not alone. Things to think about when we're talking in communication. And then evoking emotion. The best connecting moments leave you feeling something. Has anyone ever seen the Sarah McLachlan commercial for the ASPCA for dogs? Oh my gosh, they pull at your heartstrings. So we like to have meaningful connection, meaningful moments. What that looks like is important. And so when we look at that from the pulling of your heartstrings and the pulling of your memories, that can be a huge piece. So I'm going to run through these last couple, excuse me on this. So if I'm going to go a couple minutes over, I'm really sorry, Sarah. But I want to touch on creativity in business because this is also like, how do you make this yours? So there's a few things that you can look at. We've talked about introductions pretty heavily now. That can be a huge creativity piece of business. But I also want you to think of your style from your writing, your clothing, your words, your environment, your personal branding, and your authenticity, such as your values, your motivation, and your outcomes. So when we look at style, a lot of times we're going to instantly think, oh, style, like watch. Well, style can be a lot of different things. And so when we look at what is your personal style and how does it affiliate to the Bardavon brand, things for you to think about in this. How do you write? What does that look like? So when we talk about writing and we're using written forms of communication, guys, make sure you have quality grammar. Grammar is imperative. If you have never used Grammarly.com, I encourage you to explore this. It can help you with your verbiage if you do not remember going back into grammar, into high school English. Punctuation can be a thing. When you're doing introductions versus people having a straight shot. So sometimes people are going to want communication that says like, hey, how are you? Hope your week is going well, or hope you've had a productive week. Sometimes we like that. Other times you're going to have people that just want the details. Like, what do you want? Why are you contacting me? Why did you just put this inbox or email in my inbox? What do you want? Getting to that point and moving on. So know your audience. If you're Iowa, like me, I like that introduction. Like, how am I? I'm doing great. Like, what's going on in your world? How are things? I like that. I can tell you I work with a PE firm, a private equity firm in New York. They do not like that. Why are you calling? What do you want? It's not personal. It's just the way that they talk. And it's the style that they choose to operate. So when I'm emailing with them, I take out all the introductions and the fluff and I get right down to business. Some of those examples are how I interact with a gentleman named Bob, where Bob will send me, here's what I need to say. And then I fluff it up for him where I'm like, oh yes, it's so great. We're so thankful that you've been a customer of ours for so long. Here's what I need to tell you. And then just want to reiterate what a wonderful human you are and we love you, etc. So depends who your people are. Clothing can also be a big part of style. And my favorite person that I'm going to use for this happens to be RBG. This woman said a ton with her clothes without ever opening her mouth to say a word. She always wore a statement earrings, and she always wore a big bold necklace. Even when she was in her robe, she always had her lace collar. But this can be a way that you project your style through your clothing. She also always had her hair pulled back to not appear too feminine, but feminine enough to have her earrings and a big statement jewelry piece. What does that look like for you? I tend to always wear glitter or sparkles because it's what I like to be remembered by. Again, it is not your job to be, it's your job to be unforgettable, not people's job to remember you. Sometimes this can be communicated through clothes. Then we also have to pay attention to words. The use of the words that you use matter. I'm going to stick to work comp for just a second. I hate the word claimant. It is probably the most vulgar word that I have heard in my past 20 years. You guys might use the word patient, but the words matter. How people see you matters. So pay attention to the words that you use, because each word you use does have a lot of power and can be seen as either a really great, powerful mechanism, or can also be seen as derogatory. So be conscious of the choice of words that you choose to use. Then we look at your environment. So if you look around where you are seated right now, what does your environment say about you? This is another way that you can communicate without communicating. Do you have plants or photos? Do you set out an obligatory candy dish that maybe only you eat sometimes, maybe? Are there chairs or no chairs? Or are you cultivating an experience, or just simply at a place to work? So what does that look like for you? The chairs versus no chairs. I actually worked with a colleague that said I was trying to build a tranquility center when I was at the workers recovery unit at Continental Western, because I wanted a space that wasn't necessarily in my office, but that people would come and hang out and we could have meetings in or what. And so I was building this experience called the Tranquility Center. There was a fountain, there were some stones, there was a little Buddha, there was a book on like self-care practices. We had a chocolate dish. Like, it was just some fake plants, one real one, because I'm not the best at keeping them alive. But this gentleman was like, I don't want my team to come sit in my office. Here, you can have my chairs. And I was like, perfect. So I took his chairs, added it to my cubicle space, and we made a different experience. So between that gentleman's experience of what he was hoping for his team versus mine, we're going to be very different. But again, what does that say about you? That very much fit his personality, and mine very much fit mine. So when we look at personal branding, just a couple of more slides to go. If you don't choose to emphasize this own style, like how you choose to show up and introduce yourself, how you want to sign your signature lines, whatever that looks like. If you don't choose your brand, Google does it for you. But think about personal branding from that landscape of how you show up. Again, you are in charge of the energy that you bring into a room, and you've got some ways that you can make yourself authentically you, from the clothing that you choose to use to the words that you choose to use. And personal branding, this is where we look at that combination of visibility and reputation that exists, not only with your customers, but also with your peers. And the idea is that we want to think of it as a program of activities designed to help elevate. The whole goal behind all of this is making sure you are showing up as the very best you that you possibly can be. And the better well known that you become and respected, your influence, as well as your earning power, can grow. We've talked a lot about authenticity. It's how you show up as your authentic self. Again, this is in a non-offensive manner of just really owning your own vulnerabilities and shortcomings to grow your roots of your tree. And then motivation is going to be different for everyone. And I'm going to relate motivation to passion here for just a second. Think about this from a standpoint. When we're looking at style, what is it that sets your soul on fire? There's something that you do in your day that can absolutely set your soul on fire. This can help you create energy bursts. So I want you to think about that. So what sets your soul on fire, and also what breaks your heart? Since I told you I love to make good things happen for people, I like making people restored and having them go back to work, back to life, becoming functional, contributing members of society. What breaks my heart is when there are loopholes that make it so people can't, or there are little cracks in the dirt that make them fall through them. And I hate that. And that breaks my heart. So that can help you create some epic movement or momentum with wherever you're at, because it helps you get to your why. Why are you doing what you do? Why do you communicate the way you do? What is your why? And what's that story look like for you? And this is where I go back to when I asked you, who are you? And there's those questions that you're going to answer for yourself tomorrow. This can help you get to that. If you can't rattle it off right now, when I say, what's your why? You're like, I don't know. We're going to give you those 5 minutes for tomorrow to do that. So in short, business communication. Your goal is to tell a story in a way only you can tell it. And that's where you start to own that authenticity piece and what that looks like from a communication standpoint. What's your style? How do you use your influence? What are the pieces of communication that you are using in a written or a verbal format? Bringing your authentic, passion-filled purpose, adding in your own why. So get excited, captivate some people, and have fun. And most importantly, this is where you get to make it your own because it is your communication style and method. So if there are any questions, I know I'm over, so I'm very sorry about that. Thank you guys for your 65 minutes. And if you have any other feedback, please come find me. I'm happy to be here for you with all of that. And I will make sure you guys all get a copy of this. I promised Sarah would get a PDF after this afterwards. And Matthew, I did see that you were on here and I had to make sure I said go Hawks. Yeah, I see that.
This is awesome, Claire. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll give you some feedback or any questions or anything that we get afterwards, but all wonderful, wonderful information. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today.
Very much so. And you guys will get your PDF. Please make sure you spend just 5 minutes with yourself tomorrow. Answer some of those questions. Your future self will thank you for it. And it might be a really good conversation for you to have with your leader at some point too. So fun stuff.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.